The winter of 1911 came to Paris like a hush before a confession. Even the Seine seemed to hold its breath, thin plates of ice crystallizing along the quays as if the river itself wanted to be sculpted. At the edge of the city's twinkling heart, within the wrought iron cradle of the Grand Palais, Cirque Luminara prepared for the first of its sold-out soirees. Lanterns as bright as Jupiter's moons swayed over wagons, tents, and rouged performers, but none shone more fiercely than Alexandre Rousseau, known from Bucharest to Barcelona as Soleil Noir, the man who could swallow fire and breathe it back into dragons. Alexandre kept to the far corner of the practice ring, rolling a phoenix-headed torch over his knuckles in idle circles. He looked every bit the fire he worshipped, tall, copper-skinned, amber-eyed, with hair the color of banked coals. Most spectators believed that wax-coated wicks and kerosene explained his miracles, but the troupe knew a deeper, more dangerous truth. Alexandre did not perform with fire, he commanded it. He could coax a spark from wet wood or quiet an inferno with a whisper. The ringmaster, Madame Celeste, allowed him in Luminara only under strict oath. He would never reveal how completely the flames obeyed. A sharp, crystalline chime broke his reverie. Across the sawdust lay a new Act One neither posters nor program had advertised. A woman in a pale sapphire coat moved through the chill like a rumor of January. She carried a mallet and chisel whose steel mouths glittered blue, and in the center of a shallow pool lay a block of glass, clear ice taller than herself. A crowd of roustabouts and jugglers watched as she raised the mallet. When she struck, frost scattered in perfect hexagons, reshaped in midair into snowflakes that refused to melt under the tense gas lamps. Alexandre felt the heat around his shoulders lean instinctively toward that impossible chill. He slipped closer. With each blow, fragments arced out and paused, mid-sleight, awaiting their artist's word. Her gloved fingers knitted a sequence of flicks and spirals, and the shards fused, hanging like orbiting moons that caught the torchlight. In minutes, she had coaxed from the ice the luminous skeleton of a swan. Steam rose from the pool as though the bird exhaled. Only when the last shard clicked into place did she notice Alexandre. Eyes the color of alpine runoff widened, and the shards, startled by her distraction, clattered to the floor as ordinary slush. "You made them fly," he murmured in French. "And you talk to fire, Monsieur Soleil," she answered, lips curving. Her accent bent vowels along the Renone Valley. "I have watched you from the corridor. The flames dance in time with your breath." "We do not discuss such things in the open," he warned, lowering his voice. "Madame Celeste forbids it." "She also forbade me to carve before anyone arrived," the woman replied with playful defiance. She extended a cold, damp hand. "I am Lysandre Verne. The ringmaster hired me yesterday when she learned that the exposition's Glacier Pavilion had closed. She must fill 2 hours of spectacle, and I am convenient." Alexandra took her hand. The air between their palms hissed. Condensation spiraled from her skin and curled into miniature clouds. A jolt of impossible equilibrium danced through his nerves. Fire tasting snow, summer greeting winter. For a heartbeat, each became the other's mirror. He released her carefully. "Welcome to Luminara," he said. "But be careful. This place feeds on marvels and repays them in chains." Lysandra quirked a brow. "Chains can be melted or shattered depending on one's temperament." Before he could ask more, Madame Celeste's silver cane cracked against the ring's wooden rail. "What do we have here?" the ringmaster sang, her peacock gown rustling like dry leaves. She glared at the puddled slush near Lysandra's boots. "Mademoiselle, you are to rehearse in the ice wagons, not my main tent." "I was testing light angles," Lysandra said with calm politeness. Alexandre noted she did not wipe the droplets that refroze along her lashes. She wore her frost as proudly as some women wore diamonds. Celeste turned to Alexandre. "You come. Your flames must be tuned to the new footlights. And stay clear of the ice, girl. Opposite elements lead to accidents, and accidents lead to inquests. She swept away, emerald feathers flicking back like a warning tail. Lysandra whispered, "Opposite elements also lead to miracles." Alexandra could not disagree. That night, Paris trembled under a violet dusk. Carriages lying, the Avenue Eisenhower, disgorging diplomats in sable collars and actresses draped like orchids. Inside the Grand Palais, the stage had been transformed into a clockwork menagerie of gears and lanterns. Backstage, nerves pricked skin like invisible needles. Cables were tested twice, lion cages inspected for hairline cracks. Yet Alexandra's pulse beat for something rarer than fear of failure. It beat for the memory of Lysandra's fingers, cold as moonstone, and for the way his own heat had surged to greet them. He found her behind the men's wardrobe wagon, chip carving a handheld block no larger than a skull. In seconds, she conjured a chess knight with translucent mane. She glanced up without surprise. "I thought you'd come. Are you here to obey the ringmaster or disobey her?" "Both," he confessed. "Celeste insists I open the show with the Phoenix Spiral. She also insists I not speak to you. I intend to do both things, in reverse order." Lysandra balanced the ice knight on her palm. "I have rehearsed an aria of frost blooms, but it feels half alive. Fire would make it breathe." "You wish to join Axe?" he asked, startled. "I wish," she corrected, "to craft wonder. Audiences think they know flames and ice. They do not know what happens when those forces touch without fighting." Lysandra stared at her creation, imagining it encircled by ribbons of flame that kissed but never consumed. "Celine will forbid it." "Then let us ask forgiveness afterward," Lysandra said, and her smile flashed like the first cut of a chisel. They arranged a clandestine rehearsal after midnight, when the Grand Palais locked its doors and only the ghosts of applause roamed the galleries. Alexandra fetched 2 torches, while Lysandra hauled a fresh ice column into the arena. Gaslights had been dimmed, leaving cavernous shadows. He ignited his first torch with a mere breath. Flame curled obediently, flickering green where copper salts coated the wick. Lysandra lifted her bare arms, and the temperature dived. Needles of vapor formed the suggestion of wings above her shoulders. Their duet began tentatively. Alexandra traced a ring of fire on the sawdust, and Lysandra exhaled a spiral of cold that laced the fire's circumference, imprisoning heat in a prison of glittering glass. Fire did not crack the ice did not smother the fire. They coexisted, each impossible, each visible proof that the other's world could bend. Alexandra moved closer. Flames climbed his wrists like sleepless cats, yet he felt no burn. Lysandra's breath frosted the air so intensely that every ember refracted within the haze, multiplying until the tent looked packed with phantom stars. At last she touched his flame-wreathed hand. The heat boiled droplets that refroze mid-steam, falling as hollow spheres that clicked upon the floor like crystal beads. He had never seen such a thing. They both laughed, eyes bright with the intoxication of boundary-breaking science masquerading as art. They did not notice the silhouette observing from a catwalk. It belonged to Harlan Vaux, the troupe's illusionist, whose vanishing tigers and mirror mazes had long claimed top billing. He had already lost prestige when Soleil Noir joined. To surrender more applause to an upstart ice maiden was unthinkable. He withdrew, mind flickering with sabotage. The next evening arrived, draped in expectancy. Within the dressing tent, performers painted faces and rehearsed nervous mantras. Alexandre found his torch bag tampered with, caps missing, kerosene canisters half emptied. He suspected Harlan immediately, but no evidence tied the illusionist to the mischief. Alexander topped the fuel and prayed the flames would behave. On the opposite wing, Lysandra discovered her ice blocks, delivered late and already melting. The cart parked beside an exhaust grate deliberately left open. She summoned a jet of freezing air to salvage enough solid mass for her showpiece, though she sensed a warning in the sabotage. Keep to your own element. They met behind a velvet drape minutes before showtime. From the arena boom came Celeste's voice. "Mesdames et messieurs, welcome to Cirque Luminara." Alexandre cupped Lysandra's fingers, ignoring the sting of temperature difference. We proceed? He asked. She nodded. If we fail, at least we fail in truth. At Celeste's cue, he strode beneath the big top's apex. Flames coiled around his arms. The crowd roared for Soleil Noir. He swallowed the first torch, let the tongue of fire vanish down his throat, then opened his mouth to breathe out a pillar that spiraled to the ceiling and ignited a chandelier of Roman candles. A standard flourish, but delivered with the quiet authority of a monarch greeting subjects. Beneath the applause, Lysandra wheeled her block to center ring. Spectators murmured, surprised by a second soloist so soon. Celeste frowned from her dais, but she did not halt the show. Perhaps, she believed, a short cameo harmless. Lysandra began sculpting. Her first strike produced a lattice of hoarfrost that crawled up her sleeves. The audience gasped as the block shrugged off shards like a molting crystal serpent. Outlines of angelic wings appeared. From the flies above, Harlan Vox smirked and kicked free a hidden lever. A series of canisters, rigged ostensibly for Alexandra's Phoenix Spiral finale, tilted. They contained white phosphorus more volatile than kerosene. Harlan planned a premature discharge. A fountain of wildfire would swamp the stage, discrediting the fire eater and burying. He pulled the igniter, but the flames that shot downward did not behave like ordinary fire. The moment they entered Alexandra's orbit, they veered. He felt them as one might feel an unexpected tug on a sleeve. The flames pleaded for guidance. He shaped them into a dome over Lysandra, weaving wildfire into a shield around the ice. Harlan cursed and jammed the lever again. A second burst cascaded. This time, Lysandra intervened. She lifted her arms, eyes glacial with concentration. Freezing vapor raced upward, encasing the descending fire in sheaths of ice, so clear it refracted each tongue of flame into prismatic ribbons. Heat met cold and exploded into geysers of steam that moaned through the chandeliers like cathedral organs. The audience screamed, assuming catastrophe, but within the steam, shapes emerged. Flaming roses blooming on glass stalks, frost dragons whose breath glowed ember red. Alexandra and Alessandra stood back to back, orchestrating an impossible bestiary born of opposing kingdoms. What had begun as sabotage became the greatest special effect Paris had ever beheld. Madame Celeste staggered to her feet. Her cane's silver tip hammered the stage. "Cease!" she shrilled, but her voice drowned beneath ovation. Harlan, seeing his plan unravel, tried one last gambit. He hurled a magnesium flare. As it arced downward, white sparks threatened to blind and burn simultaneously. Lysandra thrust an arm, capturing moisture from the very breath of the crowd. Sheets of ice congealed around the flare, trapping it. Alexander then compressed the remaining flame into a fist-sized orb that he smothered with a closing hand. Darkness fell for 1 second, completely reverent. Then the gaslights blazed on, illuminating the ring where, impossibly, a single perfect lotus of fire burned within a chalice of ice that bled no water. Silence possessed the palace before the storm of cheers. Alexander Celeste intercepted them near the lion cages, her eyes pale with fury. "You swore fealty to my program," she hissed at Alexandra. "And you," she jabbed a finger toward Lysandra, "had no permission to share the ring." Alexandra bowed with molten politeness. The audience seemed pleased. "An audience's pleasure cannot outweigh a troupe's secrets," Celeste replied. "You have revealed too much. People will ask how. They will prod." "We survive on inscrutability." Lysandra stepped forward, crystalline flakes shedding from her sleeves. "Then perhaps the time has come for truth. Your circus hides gifts that might aid mankind. Heat for the cold, cold for the burning. Why bury them in ticket stubs and curtain calls?" Celeste's gaze flickered, and Alexandra saw real fear beneath the peacock plumage. "You know nothing of the world's appetite. It would devour you for these talents. I cage wonders to spare them." "And I refuse to live caged," Lysandra said. The ringmaster raised her cane, but a new commotion rippled behind her. Lighting grips escorting Harlan Vox, wrists bound in rope. They had found the trigger wires and overheard his spitting confession. Celeste's fury pivoted from betrayal to damage control. She stormed toward the knot of grips, leaving Alexandra and Lysandra unguarded. Now, Lysandra whispered. They fled through service corridors smelling of straw and oiled gears. Outside, snowflakes skimmed the air like silver fish. The full moon made of the Seine a black ribbon. Lysandra summoned a platform of frost across the river's edge. Alexandra warmed the surface so their boots found traction. They walked side by side along the floating causeway until they reached an island of ice lilies she raised with a gesture. Paris glowed on every horizon. Somewhere bells chimed midnight. Alexandra exhaled, and a miniature sun hovered above his palm, its warmth gentle as a candle beside her cheek. "Why me?" he asked. "You have mastered solitude. Fire is disorder to you." Lysandra touched the halo of light. Fire is not disorder, it is transformation. Ice preserves, fire liberates. Together they create balance. He laughed softly. "Then what shall we do? Become alchemists? Saints? Rebels?" "Perhaps all three," she said. "We travel, teach, and inspire fear where fear is due, but never again under a cage." From the Grand Palais, distant trumpets launched the final act. The night sky blossomed with fireworks, their colors reflecting in her ice lilies. Alexandre lifted his other hand, braided real flame through the artificial blooms, and the river answered with steam ghosts that drifted like souls set free. Behind the glitter and thunder, Cirque Luminara's secrets split like overheated glass. Rumors would swirl of elemental lovers, of sabotage, of a show so beautiful it defied physics. Celeste's empire would survive, perhaps, but diminished. Spectators would forever wonder if the greatest wonders had slipped away under their noses. On the frigid island, Lysandra leaned into Alexandra's heat, and he welcomed the paradox of her shiver. They regarded the fireworks, sparks dying into ash, ash drifting into dark water. Every end, they both understood, was only a temperature change, a chance for matter to assume a new form. "Paris is just the beginning," Alexandra said. Lysandra nodded. "Tomorrow we find the equator, and the day after that, the pole. Wherever balance is missing," they clasped hands, fire entwined with ice, unafraid, and stepped into the night, leaving behind a city awestruck, a circus forever altered, and a path ahead bright enough to melt fate itself.